Well, greetings to you. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie getting underway on this Thursday on EWTN Radio. Along with Debbie Georgiani, I am Jerry Usher. The show team is in place, and we've got, I think, a really good topic and conversation ahead of us here today. Debbie, what do you think?
We do. This is so exciting. You know, we've heard about childhood sweethearts and those that got married very young, right out of college and started their family. But we don't really put a lot of focus on those that got married later in life. And we want to talk about what that means for the beautiful sacrament of marriage and how it all plays out when we're much more mature. You know, we're older and we can look at getting together a little differently than when we were younger. So we're talking about marriage later in life. Now, I'm curious, Jerry, why did you put this on the calendar? Did one of our Take Two family members recommend this?
Yep. It was suggested by a listener. I think her name was Pat. I've got to go back and look on our topic list sheet here. Yeah, it was. Her name is Pat, and she suggested this topic. So we are going to present that to you today and invite you to call in and share your experience. If you waited a little while, there's no magic number here. It could be in your 40s, could be in your 50s, 60s, 70s. But if you didn't get married until a little bit later than the traditional ages, quote unquote, give us a call. Tell us what that has meant for you and how you've adjusted to that. 833-288-EWTN, 833-288-3986.
Please call in. We want to fill up the phone lines there. The lines are just starting to light up, so you can get right in, 833-288-3986. You can also email us, take2@EWTN.com. You can text us. You text the letters EWTN to 55000. You can also go on YouTube or Facebook, and Jeff Burson, our social media manager, grabs them real quickly, and he puts them right up on the board. But we have a special guest this morning, Jerry, and I'm super excited for this first segment of Take Two. Johnette Williams thought she was finished with her radio show for today, but she wasn't, because we needed her to tell her story of how she met Jack Williams, and we've heard it a few times, I believe, on television and on radio. But you know, it's nice to keep hearing different aspects of it, because I think it could help all of us. Wouldn't you agree?
I would, yeah. And Jack and Johnette obviously married, quote, later in life, but they were they were previously married, and under very sad and unfortunate circumstances, each lost their spouse, and so they each remarried each other. And Johnette is here to share a few thoughts on that with us before we go to the first break. Hi, Johnette. How are you?
Oh, I'm well, Jerry. How are you doing today? And yes, I was surprised, but yet very, very delighted by the invitation to stay on for a little while longer and spend this time with you and Debbie.
Oh,
good.
Thanks, Johnette. So, Johnette, tell us, you know, meeting Jack, I mean, we know God put you two together. It's very obvious. And hearing the two of you speak and being on radio and television, it's just so apparent. But tell us what it feels like, what it felt like. You're much more mature and in the faith and everything. You've grown up, right? We're all adults. Hopefully we're all adults. I kind of got the Peter Pan theory here. But you know what, Johnette, it's important. How do people approach it when we're in our 30s and 40s and 50s?
Yeah, and I think somebody in their 30s would approach it very differently than somebody in their 50s or 60s would approach it. But, I think in our case, God has been abundantly good to us. And you are right, Debbie, he made it very, very apparent to us that this was of him. And I think that that's the very first thing. And this is good advice for any age group anticipating or thinking about getting married. You really want to know if this is of the Lord. Is God calling you to do this? So when you're in a more mature moment in your life, and you've been married before, and you've been in a happy marriage before, you wonder, do I want to do this again? Could I do this again? Would I ever be as emotionally attached, as spiritually attached to another person? And you don't want to just go off and do it because you're lonely. And I think a lot of people can make that mistake, especially if you, are still in the grieving process. You don't want to rush into a situation. Now, Jack and I didn't court very long, so some people thought we were rushing, but we weren't. We had a lot of things in place. We had a spiritual director who was guiding us and leading us, Father Wade Menezes. We were doing a whole lot of praying together and individually. And, we sensed the presence of the Lord with us when we would be together and when we would be praying. So I recommend that is the very first thing people have to do. One, is God calling me to marriage again? Two, if he is, then, is this the person that he would have me be with? Do I see any red flags? I think we're a little bit more careful maybe the second time we're marrying after we've been widowed or have lost our spouse in some way. So that's what I say. What I can tell you is that this has been just an incredibly sweet time in my life. It has been just a sweet, sweet time. And Jack and I appreciate each other so very much. We're quick to tell each other how much we appreciate each other. And we're very cautious through that courting process, to try to divest ourselves of baggage from our other relationships. And here I don't mean the kind that people experience coming out of a divorce, but I just mean you pick up a certain way of interacting with your spouse, and you have certain defense mechanisms in place, for example, and we worked out some of those things in those courting days so that we could start really fresh with each other.
Johnette Williams here in this opening segment of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, talking about marrying later in life. Actually, the second marriage for her, she was a widow. Jack Williams was a widower, and they have a beautiful, beautiful marital relationship right now. What about you, Take Two family? Maybe you have to share the same circumstances as Johnette or Jack. Maybe you just didn't feel the call to marriage until your 40s, 50s, 60s. We're talking about marrying later in life and sharing your experience about that at 833-288-3986.
I know we've got to hit the pause button in just about a minute, Johnette, and you have to get ready for television, but we have an interesting text that just came in. I would love to quickly try to get it in. Maybe you could respond real fast before the break or maybe right after.
Sure.
A lady just said she was listening to you talk about how you had a beautiful life in your previous marriage. So did Jack, and now you come together and you have this wonderful love. How do you expand that love and not feel divided, like you're being loyal to one, the spouse that left, and then now this new spouse? Very interesting, fascinating comment. But here we go. You heard the music. This is Marrying Later in Life on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Please join us.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
We've started doing these shows. Call in if you're an atheist. Call in if you want to redefine marriage. Those are the kind of shows that make very engaging radio. We're going to continue to try to reach out to the fringes and find those people who fundamentally disagree with us. And we're going to continue to create shows that are going to reach out to those people to draw them in to the fullness of the truth.
Catholic Answers Live, tonight, 6 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
The Reason for Our Hope with Father Larry Richards.
Do you know Christ? Do you know him intimately? Like you know your wife, like you know your best friend, like you know your children. And if the answer in your heart of hearts is no, I haven't a clue, then you haven't even begun yet to live the purpose of your life. And that's what needs to start happening. You gotta deal with that question. It's the most important question of your life. And again, it's gonna take you time. You know, how do you fall in love with anybody? Those of you who are married, you didn't get married to your wife by meeting her once and giving her 45 minutes to an hour once a week. You spent time with her. You got to know her. So the same thing has to happen with God. You gotta ask that question, and it's gonna take you time, but you gotta do it. You gotta answer that question. My thing is always seek truth, because truth will always lead you to God.
You're tuned in to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. Thanks to Michael, Jeff, and Ryan, the show team affiliates, for carrying the program, and thanks to Johnette Williams for staying over from her show for a few extra minutes here. We'll get right back to that, but I want to mention a couple of great books that are put out by EWTN Publishing. Making a Holy Lent, 40 Meditations to Prepare for the Church's Holiest Season. That is by the very well-known and popular Father William Casey, and another popular priest in that congregation is Father Wade Menezes, and he has written the book, The Four Last Things, where he focuses on the difference between the particular judgment and the last judgment, church's teachings on heaven, hell, purgatory, and death. Those are the last four things. So you can get these two books together at EWTNRC.com, Making a Holy Lent and The Four Last Things.
Johnette Williams is just going to be with us for a few more minutes, but we'd love to have you call in and finish out the discussion for marrying later in life. The number to dial is 833-288-EWTN, so easy to remember, 833-288-3986. And before the break, we had this wonderful text message that came in, and we were talking actually about, you're in the journey of life, you're more mature when you marry later in life. That's obvious. You have more life experience, right? But still, if you had your spouse that had passed away, and now you enter into this beautiful new relationship, right? And you have this love for this person that is your partner for the rest of your life. How do you not feel divided? Can you expand that love? I think you could kind of maybe relate that to when you have more than one child, right? You always get people that say, well, how could you love the second child as much as you love the first child? Your heart expands. But let's ask Johnette Williams. Johnette, can you share from your perspective and maybe from what you've heard from Jack's perspective on this about, is it a divided love? Can you expand the love? What does it look like? What does it feel like?
Well, thank you, Debbie. And I have to agree with that beautiful analogy that you used there, because I think it is very appropriate. The fact of the matter is, our loves, our capacity to love is not limited. Love, is really a participation in the divine life, right? So it's not limited. We have a capacity to love more than one person, and we see that in bearing children and raising children. We love each child. We love them differently in some cases. We don't love them the same. They're individual personalities. And I have found in my own experience that I have never stopped loving Anthony. I will never stop loving Anthony. He was given to me by God. We had this beautiful marriage and relationship, but there is room in my heart to love another as well. And I love Jack, and I love them differently. And that is because they're individuals and they're very different from each other. In some ways, they're very much alike. Teasingly, our daughter, Katie, Jack's daughter, teases me and says, Johnette, you do have a type. And I think that there's something about that. So there's similarities, but there's differences. And I have found that through each of these two men who God has entrusted to me, that I've learned things about myself that I didn't know. Jack has taught me things about myself that I didn't realize or recognize when I was married to Anthony. And Anthony certainly taught me lots of things about myself too. So I don't feel any disloyalty to my first husband. And I don't believe that Jack feels any disloyalty to Susie, his first wife. As a matter of fact, we talk about our spouses, our former spouses, together, and we have no problem doing that. And so we, say, John the 23rd tells us that our loved ones are not separated from us, only invisible to us. But marriage is for this world. So, marriage is not something that exists in heaven. So we are able and free to remarry if we're called into that state in life again. And I would say that I wouldn't let that worry you if you feel that God is calling you to remarry again.
Mm.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Johnette Williams with us here. Just for a couple more minutes, those of you on the line, we're going to get to you starting with Ginger in Houston, Deborah in Dallas. And we have a couple of lines open at 833-288-3986. If you, maybe you never felt called, maybe you thought you were going to be a priest or a religious, and that didn't happen. And then maybe God revealed to you, hey, here's your life mate, your spouse. Maybe you got married a little bit later in life. Maybe there's an age gap, an age difference between you and your spouse. Talking about this here today on Take Two at 833-288-3986. John, I know you got to go in just a couple minutes, but your situation, we mentioned you were married, lost your husband, remarried to Jack. What about a person who is kind of going through that vocational discernment in their 20s, 30s, not really getting any perfect clarity on that, but then, all of a sudden, it comes to them maybe in their 40s or their 50s, and they're thinking, well, you know what, the window has passed. I'm too old to get married now. What would you say to them?
Well, our Lord is full of surprises. I never thought that I would remarry. I had been a widow for 11 years, a long time, and was pretty set in my ways at that point in time in being a single woman, uh, taking care of myself and, running my home and running an organization, etc. So God is full of surprises, though. And we have to be open to the direction that God wants to lead us. And we need to give fiat to that. And if God is calling someone into the married state, I think that he will make it very, very clear. It's not necessarily always something that is written in stone, but the longing in your heart, the desire in your heart for that will be evidence of God's desire for you to move in that direction. And I think that age is not a limit to marriage. I have heard of individuals who are married. As a matter of fact, I heard of a gentleman just recently who got married at the age of 85. Wow. So I wouldn't say that age is a limit, right? We smile at that, but the fact of the matter is, there's something in that. And I want to say this too, if I may. What is marriage really all about? Marriage is a state in life that is meant for us to lead each other to heaven. For a man to lead his wife to heaven and a wife to lead her husband to heaven. And marriage is a way in which we are able to see through the sacrament the face of God smiling and shining at us. So, I look for Jesus in Jack. And Jack makes Jesus present to me. And I hope that I do the same for him. And it's through this beautiful gift, through this beautiful sacrament, that we're led to a desire for the greatest thing in life, and that is union with Jesus, which hopefully we will have someday for all eternity in heaven.
Oh, wow. Amen to that. Johnette Williams, thank you so much for staying over and gracing this conversation today on getting married later in life. Okay, now you can head over to the television side.
Well, thank you so much for your invitation. This was sheer pleasure. And God bless all of you today. And Debbie and Jerry, love you both. God bless. Bye-bye now.
Love you too, Johnette. Thank you. And thank
you.
Jack as well. Well, that was so wonderful. And I think it was helpful for all of us to hear that and to have great reminders about how we are to lead each other to heaven. I love the way Johnette said, she looks for Jesus, in Jack, and she hopes to be the same to Jack, Jesus to him. And that is so true. That's why getting married later in life, it is important. It's on the road to sainthood. It's on the road to getting to heaven. So important, folks. This is a beautiful conversation we're having, Jerry.
Yes, it is, and we're going to bring some other people into it now via the telephone, 833-288-3986. We know many of you are in the situation where either you waited or, God didn't make it clear to you earlier, in your 20s, 30s, 40s. Again, maybe you lost a spouse and then remarried. That's what we're talking about today. 833-288-3986. Ginger is first in Houston, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. First time calling, take two. Hi, Ginger. Welcome.
Hi, Ginger.
Hi there. Good morning, everybody. I have an interesting story because I didn't get married until I was in my early mid-40s, and I met my future husband at my place of employment. He and his wife at the time clients of mine. And when I first met my husband for the very first time, I heard a voice that said to me, "This is your husband and he is your gift." And I just shook that off. I said, that's got to be just totally my own self saying that, because I thought he was a very attractive man and he was married. And there's no way that I was going to be a home wrecker. I'm trying to be a good Catholic, etc. Well, accelerate several years later, I got to know all the members of not only him but his family, because they were all clients of mine. And one day I got a phone call from my now husband, who told me, "I wanted to let you know that my wife passed away, and I need to do what I need to do for accounts that we have." And I got so blown away by that I hung up on him. I completely and totally hung up on him. And he had to call back and
Oh,
say,
my.
I guess we got disconnected. And I said, yes, we got disconnected. Yes, and that was it. And we then proceeded to do what we needed to do for him. And I got off the phone and I told everyone, oh, my goodness, I know what's going to happen. He's going to ask me out to lunch, and then we're going to start dating, and then we're going to get married. I just know that's what's going to happen. And would you all believe that that's exactly what happened? And we've been married for 15 years. It'll be this December that we've been married for 15 years. But he is truly my gift from above, and I'm grateful for him every day of my life.
Mm. Wow, what a beautiful story, Ginger. And the little funny part there about you hanging up on him must have been really quite an experience for him. But, of course, you said he did call you back, so that's great. But, I just say, thanks be to God for you, being obviously morally grounded, knowing that when you had that sense in your mind or in your heart that he was going to be your husband one day, you just basically says, no, I'm not going there. How many people, a lot of people would have tried to act on that right away, and that could have been, very much a disaster. So bless you for having the virtue, and see God, brought that back around. So, he proved his word to you, all those years later.
I want to encourage any young lady who is in her early 40s, don't give up on God. If you pray for your husband, he will show up if you pray about it.
I completely agree with that, Ginger. That's what I did. I was in my 40s, and I was determined never, ever to walk down that aisle again. And God had different plans because I prayed and I turned it over and I said, if this is what you want and this is what you feel is important for me to stay on the road, hopefully to get to heaven, then so be it. And God placed, and my husband and I should have really never met. He was in a whole different town. It was really odd the way we met. It was definitely the Holy Spirit. And we knew right away from the first, well, I shouldn't say the first time, the second time we actually were together, we realized we were going to be together forever. So you're right. And I feel bad for people that do give up in their 40s and 50s and 60s because they do have an encounter with, a dating service online or whatever, or they go on a blind date or they try something and it doesn't work and they say, that's it, I'm done. Right, Ginger? So that's what you're saying, giving people hope that God is bigger than that and God has a plan for each and every one of us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure talking to y'all.
Oh,
likewise.
We'll call again. You're not a first-time caller anymore.
That's right. Thank you very much, y'all. Bye-bye.
God bless you, Ginger.
God bless you, Ginger.
833-280. Yeah, go ahead.
Every time I think of Ginger, I think of the Ginger on Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's
I
Island.
loved that show. Didn't you love that show?
Oh, yeah. Hardly ever missed an episode.
But I always wondered, it was kind of weird, though. Like, why didn't they get, back home?
Well, it was a very frustrating show, actually.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Every episode, a way home kind of came across their paths, and it didn't work out for them. Of course, if it had, it would be the end of the show. But
exactly.
Yeah, it was. I used to turn the TV off, frustrated after watching that show.
Me too. I used to feel agitated. I used to always go eat afterwards, like macaroni and cheese or something. It's too funny. The things that we grew up with, right?
Yeah, we're going to get to Deborah in just a minute. Deborah, we have a pause coming up, so we'll just don't want to get you on for a short minute and then interrupt you. So we'll just, if you can hang on just a couple minutes, we will get to you. But we do have some social media comments that have come in today. Michael J., watching the video stream on YouTube, Debbie says, I thought for the longest time God didn't have marriage in the books for me, and I was at peace with that. Then the woman of my dreams entered my life.
And that was from Michael?
Michael J. Yeah, we have several Michaels that comment on social media.
Well, we're waving to you. See, you heard me say oops because I forget I have a microphone right in front of me, and I knock it over.
Talking with your hands?
Yeah. What can I say? I'm Sicilian.
Janet says, also watching on YouTube, our son is getting married for the first time in September this year. He is 53 years old. What's even more interesting is he went to school with her and never dated. Our son is getting married for the first time. Oh, yeah, that's up there, put up there twice. So isn't that interesting, Debbie? Mm-hmm. They not only weren't high school sweethearts, they knew each other in high school, but never even dated. And now they're getting married.
Wow. Wow. And then we have our wonderful team member, Laura, recommended this for yesterday, Jerry, because she heard about our show today and she thought that was fascinating, getting married later in life. She'd like us to put on the calendar for a future show, having a vocation to the priesthood later in life. She'd like to know why. So I told Laura we'd add that to the calendar, but we're going to have our clergy step up for that one because that's interesting, having a later vocation. What do you think about? What do you think about that?
Well, I know firsthand, as you know well, that I know well, because we were with Vocation Boom, that ministry, for many years, and I actually interviewed a lot of priests who were widowers or just had a career, a wonderful, fruitful career, working life, and then God led them, nudged them in the spirit, and they became priests. So there are a lot of them. We're going to get back to your calls here. So Deborah, hang on. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio.
Raymond Arroyo, Dr. David Anders, Father Mitch Pacwa. The leading Catholic voices are on the largest Catholic media network in the world. You're listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
It's time for Family Man with Dr. Gregory Popchak.
Some couples do a better job of prioritizing their relationships than others, but a new study from the University of Illinois shows that all couples, even ones with a more don't sweat it attitude toward couple time, experience a greater risk of marital problems if they don't develop their relationship work ethic. According to the study, when people enter the workplace, they make an effort to arrive on time, be productive throughout the day, listen attentively to coworkers and supervisors, and try to get along with others. Researchers say couples should be at least as invested in their relationship work ethic, prioritizing their partner and putting the same kind of energy into active listening, planning time together, finding a workable solution for sharing household tasks, and handling personal stress so it doesn't spill over into the relationship. Our faith tells us that living our vocation as husbands and wives is the most important activity on our schedule. It seems science agrees. I'm Dr. Greg Popchak, but you can call me Family Man.
To discover more ways faith can enrich your life, visit CatholicCounselors.com.
Now there's a fast and easy way to get in touch with EWTN. The EWTN Everything number. Call 1-800-447-EWTN to get the latest information on programming, special events, pilgrimages, and more. Our EWTN Family Viewer Services representatives are ready to help you with whatever your needs may be. The EWTN Everything number. 1-800-447-EWTN. EWTN.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. Are you curious about the Catholic faith and need answers? Call to Communion is the show for you. Today at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. This is your show, and you're doing a great job with your calls. Several of you on the line that we are going to get to here momentarily at 833-288-3986. I had mentioned Deborah would be next, so let's go to Deborah in Dallas, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. Mike and Susan, hang on. You're coming right up as well. Hi, Deborah. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I really enjoy your show. I have a quick question. Y'all talking about being married and later in years. My question is, I know you've been remarried, so my question is, when you pass away and you go into heaven, you always join your family. But if you've been married before, how would that work? It's kind of a strange question. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah, it comes up all the time, Deborah. I'll take a stab at it first. There's no marriage in heaven. Marriage is here for on earth. And so I remember a wonderful holy priest, because I asked him this question numerous times because it used to come up in religious education all the time. And he would say, we're going to know how we are related to that person, what kind of relationship we had with that person on earth. We're going to know, and that is still there. So it's not like, you meet your husband and you two are off, traveling all around heaven together. You're going to know the relationship you have, and it's going to be just a wider, more godly view of everything. And so it will make complete sense. So everything will fit in kind of like a nice puzzle piece, if you will, and it forms this beautiful heavenly tapestry, if I can say it like that. And so it's not going to be as awkward as people think it's going to be, because we're thinking of it from a human standpoint, a worldly standpoint. We're not thinking of it from the heavenly side. Does that clear things up a bit?
I guess a little bit. I mean, I understand there is no marriage in heaven, but if you marry somebody, you have a family with that person, you have children and grandchildren and all that, but then you're remarried to somebody else. I mean, I just don't kind of understand how that will all go together, but.
Well, and that's, I think, precisely what Debbie was talking about, is those different. I mean, what would happen? Let's see. We had John Williams on the show in the opening couple of segments, and let's just say, marriage kind of endured or perdured into eternity. Someone who had been married a couple of times, that would be, I think, a very awkward situation for someone to be in eternity with, sort of knowing that here's my first husband, here's my second husband. But I think a helpful scripture passage for you, Deborah, might be in Matthew 22, where the Sadducees come up to Jesus and want to, of course, they're always trying to trap him in one way or another. And they said, "Teacher, Moses said, if a man dies having no children, his brother must marry the widow and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers among us," and the story goes on. The woman married one of the brothers. He died. She ended up marrying all 7 of the brothers, and they all died. And so Jesus says, starting in verse 29, "You are wrong, because you know neither the scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven." So that's Matthew 22, starting at around verse 23. If you get a chance, maybe read that. That might be some comfort coming straight out of God's word for you. But I don't know. Has any of this been helpful? Hopefully it has, Deborah.
Yes, sir, it has. Thank you. And I appreciate y'all taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Have a blessed weekend.
Yeah, you do the same. Thank you.
And don't you kind of view it as it's a gigantic family reunion? And everybody kind of fits in. It's a family reunion. So you have to look at it bigger than just your specific family, your husband, your children, your grandchildren. It's a gigantic family reunion in heaven. And so I think that also helps to get us to expand our minds a bit as we are imagining heaven. What do you think about that, Jerry?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. Our producer Michael just typed over a message to us. Deborah, are you still on the line, Deborah?
Yes, sir.
Our producer was wondering if what you're getting at is within the Catholic Church, how you can marry twice. Does it have to do with the sacramental nature of marriage in the church?
Oh,
marrying?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Good. Just wanted to be sure. We want to make sure that we address, what the specific point is that's on your mind and on your heart. So thank you, Deborah, for the call in Dallas. We appreciate that.
Well, and let me just share this, too, about guardian angels. A lot of people say, well, when we're in heaven, what happens with our guardian angel? Because our guardian angel has a certain relationship with us here on earth. It's their mission. It's their ministry to guard us and guide us and to help us get to heaven, right? And when we get to heaven, God willing, that relationship transitions into a heavenly friend relationship. So you're not going to see your guardian angel as a protector and a guide. You're not going to need that any longer. But you're going to know you have that relationship with your guardian angel, and it transitions into that heavenly relationship where all will make complete sense. So maybe that can help as well and can be applied to how we look at relationships here on earth, Jerry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Okay. All right, Deborah, thanks again. I want to get to an email, if I may, Debbie.
And Mike then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the email. Yeah, let's go to Mike first. We'll get to the email from Karen here in a few moments. I know Mike has limited amount of time. Mike is in Grants Pass, Oregon, listening on KJCR and a first-time caller. Hi, Mike. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, thanks. Thank you. So I was telling your screener a little bit of a story. 2000, I went to Rome for Jubilee year with the Archbishop of Portland, Archbishop Blasny. And so Buddy and I went together. I was in my early 40s. And so before I left, 3 women on 3 separate days, one in Grants Pass here, one in Vancouver, Washington, and another lady on a train to northern Italy up to Turin to meet a niece who was going to school in Salzburg. I said, Mike, you're going to meet your wife on this pilgrimage. I'm going, what? And I'm like, no way, So the next day, get back to Rome, papal mass, October 22nd. somebody taps me on my shoulder and says, "Hey, are you Mike Murphy?" And I go, "Yeah." And anyway, I was supposed to meet you 5 years ago. Anyway, we became friends, and we, I visited her, she visited me, and and so I was back here in town, and my first friend, the neighbor who said I was going to meet my wife, I was sharing some photos, and she looks at me, "Who's this?" "Oh, a friend of mine I met in Italy." And so anyway, she starts laughing, and I go, "What?" And so she says, "Michael, you're in love." And I go, "No, I'm not." She goes, "Yes, you are. You're just too stupid to know it." So made me mad. I prayed my rosary that night, Saturday. And sorry, I'm a little nervous. But,
No. You're perfect.
So I prayed my rosary. And at the end of the rosary, Saturday night, 10 o'clock, I said, "Lord, you're all powerful. You know all things. And I'm just a little nothing living in the middle of nowhere. But I got to know, is Connie the woman for me?" So I said, "It's 10 o'clock. I need a sign." And so I went to sleep. But before that, I went to Our Lady of Guadalupe. I said, "Blessed Mother, I just place this prayer in your hands, because if it's God's almighty will, I just leave it to you." So I went to sleep, wake up in the middle of the night, I hear a tap on glass, and I live out in the country. So I go to my front door, nobody's there. Go to my back door, nobody's there. Go to the door near the driveway, and I hear a door close, and I go, somebody's breaking into my house. So I have a 44 Magnum, a 12-gauge shotgun, and I'm thinking, I'm a little scared, thinking I'm going to, So I was going to take a gun out and do a John Wayne, uncork one, but I figured I still had the advantage. So I opened the door. I said, "What's going on out here?" And it's Connie, who lived in Vancouver, Washington, 250 miles away. And she tells me she's running a young adult potluck. She ran in Salem, Oregon. Once a month, she ran a potluck for the young adults. And about 9:45, things cleared out. Which usually there's 100 kids there. They're young people. And it was empty by 9:45. So she goes, "Great, Lord, I can get out of here and go get home early." And so she's getting gas. She says, she gets in, she says, "It's 10 o'clock, I'm getting gas." And she hears the Holy Spirit, "Go see Michael right now."
Wow.
I can't do that. I 200 miles away and don't have any clothes or makeup and blah, blah, blah. So she heads to the freeway to head north on I-5, and second time, "Go see Michael." So she's relating the story to me. She gets to Grants Pass about 1:30 in the morning, going to find a cheap hotel, meet me at Mass at 8 o'clock. Third time, "Go see Michael right now." Okay, Lord, just don't let him pull a gun on me, because she knew I had guns. So anyway, she looks at me, she goes, "I don't know what I'm doing here." So all of a sudden, the 2x4 hits me, and I go, "Well, I think I do." And I told her what I said, and she goes, "Well, if you think I'm the kind of woman you want to marry, you can start courting me." I said, "I have no idea what that is, but I think that's a good idea." So we got married, and Archbishop Blasey was kind enough to reside along with, 9 or 10 of our priest friends at the cathedral, and we went back to Rome, had our marriage blessed by Pope John Paul, and as we approached, of course, we were the geezers, we were in our early 40s, and so when we went up to John Paul, my wife thanked him for his theology of the body, and he goes, "Oh, God bless you," and he reached out and put the sign of the cross on her forehead, and so, like I tell people, as a joke, I go, he looked at me and slapped me across the face, said, "Shape up, pal," but but anyway, he didn't do that, but I just...
Mike.
But anyway, it was just kind of a cool. Yeah. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
St. Therese was very much involved, and anyway, we just...
Mike, Mike, that's a great story. You don't have to convince me at all, because I love the name Connie. That's my mother's name. So she sounds like an incredible woman, and I'm just glad you didn't shoot her, Mike. I'm glad you married her instead. It's probably a big holiday joke with your friends and family members. You know, you're glad. I'm sure glad Mike didn't shoot me in the middle of the night.
Well, probably her guardian angel guided me in the right direction. So,
That's true.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful, Jerry?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Mike, you also, both you and Connie, had messages, indications, signs, from the Lord that this is where He was leading you. And on that note, I think, I would just encourage everybody. I think we need to put a lot of time and effort into praying about our vocation. I always say that, every human being ever created by God has what I call the moral obligation to ask Him, what is my vocation? And sometimes it's not clear immediately. Sometimes it can take many, many years, but God is still there. If you have a vocation, then, it's from all eternity, and God is going to help you fulfill that. So that was
the power of the Holy Spirit. It was
Yep.
so strong. It was turning her car in the right direction, Mike, right?
Yeah. Well, it was also, she was obedient. But it was a long time in coming. When we were in Rome, we asked if he'd ever been on a pilgrimage before. And I said, yeah, I went to the Holy Land a couple of years ago in 98. And she goes, I went in 98. And Connie had a very powerful conversion in 94. Jesus revealed himself in the Holy Eucharist. She's not Catholic. And so she went to a Catholic Mass, and she, with Archbishop Levada at the time, and anyway, he says she had always been praying for the truth, and he spoke to her in a powerful way. This bishop held up this piece of bread, and she said, all of a sudden, I was in the eternal now, and I could sense the apostles around the altar, and so the voice of Christ said, I am the truth, and now is the time to be baptized. So but anyway, going back, we had talked about pilgrimage, and we were both in the Holy Land at the same time, and in Jerusalem. In fact, I was at Calvary praying my rosary, and I go, Lord, what do you want me to do with my life? In the eyes of the world, I got a little business. I'm single, so I'm free, quote unquote. But I go, but it's not the answer. I mean, it's not fulfilling. It's not, it's not the end. And I go, if you want me to stay single, hey, I'm really good at being a goof off. I go, or if you want me to become a priest, give me a call. Or if you want me to get married, would you, bless and protect my wife until I meet her one day? And I'm not kidding you. 30, maybe a minute later, I hear the voice of a priest come up the right side of Calvary, and he says to his group, hey, everybody, it's too crowded up here right now. Let's go down to the tomb of the resurrection, and we'll come back here later. And I look over, it's Father Mitch Pacwa. And I'm like, well, this guy's brilliant. So I went down to the tomb, and I hung out with his group and talked to him briefly. And anyway, she was in that group.
Amazing.
Because I asked her if he said that. She goes, that's exactly what he said. So the timing was everything,
Yeah, boy. Timing indeed. What great experiences, Mike. I love to hear stories of how God brings people together, and you're going before the Lord, with an openness, to His will. I think that's the key factor right there. If we go to God like you did, Mike, and said, God, if you want me to remain single, I will. If you want me to be a priest, I will. If you want me to be married, you were praying for your future wife. I mean, that's just, Debbie, a beautiful, beautiful approach to one's vocational discernment. And look how it's turned out for Mike.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Holy Spirit's very active in your relationship, Mike. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful love story with us today. We appreciate it. You did a great job. So you didn't have to be nervous, Mike, and you're not a first-time caller anymore. So call us anytime. We'd love to meet Connie as well sometime maybe. So thank you, Mike. And I just want to say, Jerry, real quickly, if I may, because I know Susan is up next, and she gets our Virtual Patience Award, Jerry. Don't tell her yet, okay? All right. And real quickly, I just wanted to say the Catholic Cafe, Sunday morning, 10:30 Eastern Time. And Deacon Jeff talks with men about how to share experiences, strengthen their faith, and be better husbands and fathers. So please don't miss the Catholic Cafe Sunday morning, 10:30 Eastern Time.
Okay. As promised, Susan is next on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, calling from Antioch, Illinois, listening on 88.5 WSFI. Hi, Susan. Thanks for waiting so long, and we're happy to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you for taking my call. I have a little interesting and fun story. I don't know if I should start at the beginning. I was married what would be considered later in life when I was in my mid-30s. But then I was widowed 18 months later. And I remained a widow for 13 years. And it was a hard time, as you can imagine, but it was also kind of a lonely, lonely time. And I joined a bicycle club because I liked bicycling, and there I met a man who also liked bicycling. However, neither of us were aware that we should actually get interested in each other. We stayed interested in bicycling. Anyway, he was married at the time, but then divorced soon after that. And we would go on bike trips together, organized rides and stuff like that. Then my father died, and ironically, he lived in a town about 25 miles away, but he showed up in the grocery store in my town. It was amazing. It was like, what are you doing here? And we started to talk. He knew my father had passed away, and his father had already passed away, and he said, maybe I could give you a call sometime. So we had, for a couple months, what we call phone dates, and we got to know each other literally over the phone. And then finally on New Year's Eve, he asked me out, and I went out on my very first New Year's Eve date. I'd never done that in my life. I thought it was so exciting. We eventually decided we would get married. He was divorced. I actually was out of the church, so we didn't get married in the church. And we went along quite happily, actually. I retired from my job, and he worked, and it was fine. Everything was just lovely. And then we met a priest that was just dynamic, and he talked to us, and we said, all right, we needed to get into a church, and so Father helped us to get our marriage straightened out, get our marriage convalidated in the church, brought my husband into the church at Easter, and we were Catholic, and we were just wonderful. And it was going along better than I could have imagined from what had happened in my past and his. And then we are going along. God doesn't quit. And when I was 67, there was another traumatic situation going on in my extended family. And my husband and I ended up taking in my 5-year-old grandniece, and eventually through the years, we got a permanent custody, so she has lived with us now for 5 years, and we both became parents in our late 60s. And it has been awesome to have gone through that, wanted a marriage, wanted a family, never got it, and yet almost biblically we became parents when we were older.
Yeah, almost biblically indeed. Susan, what a very, very beautiful story. What a blessing for your grandniece. And, we keep a prayer book. Debbie writes down names of those living and deceased. And if you are comfortable sharing the first name of your first husband with us who passed away, we would be happy to put him and, of course, you and all of your family and friends in the prayer book as well.
Oh, that would be lovely. My first husband's name was Jack. Mm-hmm. I would particularly like Lily, but I also want her mom, Rachel, and her dad, Joseph, who are still struggling. They've got a lot of issues in life, and we need prayers for them, too.
Okay, you got it. And we put everybody in the book. Susan, thank you for getting our Virtual Patience Award and waiting so long to be on the show. We needed to hear your story. It's pretty amazing. You know, when we go along and we're open, like Johnette Williams was talking about, we're open to God and we move in that direction. We don't try to force things ourselves. We let them unfold. You know, I like to say organically because I'm a big organic vegetable person. So I love that. I love that term. But you know, Susan, it's so beautiful how God shows his magnificence. And now you have with your husband this beautiful family with your grandniece, and you're enjoying that. It's moving you all closer to heaven each day that you walk on this earth. It's really beautiful. And so thank you for sharing your beautiful story. And it's just a reminder to all of us, be open to God's plan. His plan is so much better than our own. Right, Susan?
Oh, and I would like to say to other listeners, you know, during my widowhood, I was getting so desperate in a way, and the only thing I could finally come down to is, Lord, if this is what you want, I know you, Lord, can create the perfect man for me. You know, and it seemed like a silly flip off of the top of my head type prayer, but God says, no, I can do that. I can do that for you. Don't ever doubt or give up faith in God. He answers everything.
Wow. Well, you are proof of... Go ahead, Susan. Final thought.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing. I just don't want people... I just would like people to know, just ask and believe, and it's just awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, your story is as well, Susan. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing it here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We do hope that you will call us again, and we appreciate you taking the time to be with us on the program today. Thanks for the call. We have our tomorrow is our All About Relationships program, and Steve in Stanton, Texas, we are down to like literally a minute, so it wouldn't be fair to get you on and then cut you off real quickly there. So if you want to call tomorrow, Ryan Penny, our call screener, will be happy to put you at the front of the line, you know, whenever you call, Steve. So please consider that tomorrow, because you have a beautiful, beautiful question, and I think we'd love to address that a little bit with you.
Absolutely. Please, Steve, we hope you make the time for tomorrow's show. And we've alerted Ryan that if you do call back from Stanton, Texas, to make sure Ryan gets you to the front of the line. So thank you so much. What a great, great show today. We learned so much, and we always do on Take Two. That's what it's all about. You know, people say, well, what is Take Two all about? Well, we're a live call-in show where we take a look at ourselves, the world around us. We grow in our faith, and we walk away a little bit changed, hopefully a little bit closer to God. So we hope you continue to join us. Spread the word to all your friends. You do not have to be Catholic to be part of the Take Two family. So let everybody know that Take Two is alive and well and happening each weekday on EWTN Radio. Jerry?
Well, yeah, thanks again to the show team. They are key to putting the broadcast on the air every day. Thank you, affiliates, for carrying the show. And as Debbie said, it is just it's our extreme blessing, an honor, a pleasure to be with you each and every day at this time. We appreciate it. Tell your friends about the program, and if anyone you know or even yourself, you missed the live broadcast here at noon Eastern Time, you can always get it at midnight Eastern Time or on the website, take2show.com. Until tomorrow, have a beautiful and blessed day, and in the year of St. Joseph, always, St. Joseph, pray for us.
Dr. Ray Guarendi, avoiding all